discuss Ecclesiastes, I guess, chapter 11, verse 5. And I thought this one was really good just because I think it's one of those underlying things that right now people are saying, like, okay, where's God type of thing. And I think it's a lot of people are even afraid to say this because they're thinking like God's going to punish them for asking. So let me just jump into it and then you'll see what I mean. So it says, just as you cannot understand the path of the wind or the mystery of a tiny baby growing in a mother's womb, so you cannot understand the activity of God who does all things. So I thought that was really good. And I'm reading out of, I have the NLT. And I just thought this verse was so on time for right now, just because we are going through uncharted territory, especially with like this whole COVID-19 and all that fun stuff. But a lot of people are either asking like, where is God in all of this? Or they're afraid to ask, but they're thinking like, why is God allowing this to happen? And so this verse is basically saying like, God is a mystery and we'll never understand it, but he does all things. So this verse reminded me of Isaiah 55 verses 9 and 10. So I'm going to read that. It says, "For just as the heavens are higher than the earth, so my ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts are higher than your thoughts." So that was just 9. I don't need to read 10. Just kidding. So we have to understand that we only have a finite understanding. Like humans, I believe we only use like 10% of our brain, and like geniuses use like, I think 11 or 12. So we still have 90% of our brain that we're not using, and God is even more vast than that. So we have a finite understanding, and God has an infinite understanding. So we can never, no matter how hard we try, we can never understand what God is doing. And I think that's the beauty of having faith in him, because we're supposed to trust him and understand that he's not going to lead us astray. He's not going to change things, basically. So I also wanted to reference that first off, God is a fair God. He's a just God. And I know sometimes it doesn't seem like that, but God's not stupid. He's aware of what's going on in the world. And the Bible says, vengeance is mine. God will take care of the things that's going on. So, for example, I've had a couple people say like, well, where is God during this coronavirus? How come these like innocent people are dying, or how come these Christians are dying, or, you know, whatever that person looks like to you. And I always, because I've asked that myself, but I always have to come back to, number one, this verse, like his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. And number two, we unfortunately are here, we have free will because of the fall, because of Satan in the garden. So because of that, we get to make our own choices. And sometimes our choices can affect something in the future. And it's almost like a domino effect. Like if you hit the wrong one will go like splattering the other, like the opposite way. And it won't fall into plan how they're supposed to. So my example I want to give is like, think of marrying someone. So in your head, you're going to marry just this one person. Hi, Julia. Good morning. So you're going to marry this one person, but if that's not who God has for you, you have free will. God's not going to force you to marry that person, but God had someone better. But because you have free will, he's not going to force you. You go ahead and you marry guy number 1, and now guy number 2 is married to someone else, and you either get back on under God's timing, and you can probably meet guy number 2 and get back to where it's supposed to be, or you just completely go down a different road. But it's not saying that it's bad. It's just saying that God has a plan for everything. So basically, I like to say sometimes our testimony isn't just for us. Our testimony is to help someone else overcome. So, for example, my whole business is basically based off my testimony. I didn't know my identity in Christ. I didn't have a good relationship with Jesus. I thought God was like this big mean thing in the sky, and I wanted nothing to do with him. It was just something I did on Sunday. But God used that. That was my testimony, and he used it, and he made it come back together. So with reading this verse, it always makes me think of Romans 8:28. God causes all things to work together for the good of those who love him. So I'm going to read the verse one more time, and then it'll kind of like tie in together. So Ecclesiastes 11:5 says, out of the NLT, it says, just as you cannot understand the path of the wind or the mystery of a tiny baby growing in its mother's womb, so you cannot understand the activity of God who does all things. So remember, God has his hands in like everything, and everything he's going to use to work together. So although my testimony, when I was going through it, I felt like, oh my God, how come I'm always comparing myself to these women? Or how come I'm compromising my self-worth sleeping with guys because I'm supposed to, because I want to feel whole. At that time, yes, it sucked, but now God is taking that and using that as my testimony, and he's allowing things to come together. So now I'm not ashamed by my testimony. I use it to help other people and help bring them out of whatever their darkness or their bondage or their stronghold looks like. So when we think of where is God and all of this, whatever this looks like to you, just understand that nothing is wasted. Nothing that we do is ever in vain. God has a reason for everything, and God's going to use it. And a perfect example is, think about, what's his name? Joseph. So Joseph was basically Jacob. He was like spoiled. He was Jacob's favorite. And he was just, I think from reading it, looks like he was just like a sickening little kid. Like he's just annoying. And his brothers hated him, and his brothers put him in that pit. And then from the pit, he, got to the palace, but as a slave. And then he was in jail. Like Joseph went through all of that. And I'm sure as he was in it in the beginning, he was like, God, where are you? I serve you. I do this for you. I do this. I pray to you. Like, how come you're not in the middle of this? And we obviously have read that chapter in Genesis. We see that at the end, he overcomes all of that, and God basically used all of that as his testimony. So when you're in the middle of it, you're looking like, what the heck is going on? Where's God? How come he's not taking care of me? But just remember, God is always in the middle. And like I read in Isaiah 55, his ways are higher than our ways. So we can never fathom what exactly he's doing. But just like Joseph, we will overcome, and we will see the things that God has for us. We will see how he carried us out of whatever our situation looked like. I said, I needed to hear nothing that happens is in vain. Nothing. Like literally, I'll find the verse and send it to you. But God is a very intentional God. He's never wasteful. He's not going to have you go and do like, he's not going to have you go like work a job or go do something for years and years at a time, and then you have nothing to show for it. Whether it was him building your character, whether it was him building your patience, it can even be him being like, I need you to go work over here because that's where your husband's going to be. You know what I mean? But our selfishness, we think we know what's best. And unfortunately, sometimes we hinder that because we think like, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't need to do that. So whatever situation we are in, remember that God is going to use it for good. So Genesis 50:20, it says, what the enemy went for evil, God turned it around for good. And I think if we view life like this, we will have a better outlook on life. Good morning, Fred. We will have a better outlook on life if we start viewing life like, okay, everything happens for a reason, and God's going to work this reason in my way. So no, you didn't get to, marry that person you're supposed to, or get that job you're supposed to, but remember, God has something better than we can even think of, because Ephesians 3:20 says that he has something that we can't even imagine. So I think that's just such like a beautiful thing to understand, that like we're sitting in it and it's like, oh my gosh, I hope I'm not just doing this just to do it. But God's like, no, you're not doing it in vain. I have something for you. Just hold on, trust, and believe. So I'm going to read it one more time, but if you guys have any questions or comments, do you mind just go ahead and putting them in right now? So Ecclesiastes 11:5. Just as you could not understand the path of the wind or the mystery of a tiny baby growing in its mother's womb, so you cannot understand the activity of God who does all things. So that was today's verse. I hope this made sense to you guys. I hope it was some clarification, because I know right now there are lots of people, especially going on with the whole the shootings and stuff that are going on. It's just reckless right now. And I know it. Sometimes we're looking like, God, that person was innocent. Like, that was an innocent man just jogging, Armad, just jogging down the street. Why did that happen? And where are you? How come you're not fixing this? God sees everything. God wrote, remember, we are like a book. God wrote chapter 1 and chapter 20 or wherever that chapter ends. And he knows everything and he sees everything. He says, vengeance is mine. God's going to take care of it. We just have to trust and believe and not take matters into our own hands, which is hard to do, obviously. But we just have to remember, like, okay, God, you got Jesus off that cross, you healed the sick. Like, we just have to believe that God's going to do what he said. And I believe he will, because we literally have a book of thousands of things that he's done since day one. And I just think we just have to, these are the times that we're being tested in our faith and our strength. And I think our patience is being tested. So I think these are the times that we shouldn't look to God as like, whoa, where are you? How come you're not in the middle? But we should look to God and be like, you know what? You are good. And I know you're going to get this. You're going to bring some type of justice to this, because this is straight wrong. So we should almost be like expectant, because we know God's like going to take care of it. Okay, so excellent word. Thanks, Julia. That's a word. Thanks, Fred. Okay, so that's all I had to discuss for today. So as usual, if you guys would like to go live with me and do a verse together, I would love to have you. And also, if you want me to look over a specific verse, just DM me a verse, and I can also go... if you just DM me a verse, I can also go over that with you as well. So just DM me if you have something in mind. If not, I will be back tomorrow. Yeah, I was late. It's okay. I'm going to save this on my story right now. Or not on my story. They don't save on stories anymore, apparently. So I'm going to save it on my profile. You'll see it. And then you can just rewatch it. But okay, guys, I am logging off. I love you all. I hope you guys have a great day. Blessings on blessings. Bye, guys.